Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen Podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, while I got you here, make sure you're checking out, or I would highly encourage you to check out the entire suite of Eastman's YouTube content. That includes Eastman's Hunting TV on YouTube. Beyond the Grid is on YouTube. You can also find all of the Wingmen content, obviously, on YouTube, and all of our podcasts. Holy smokes, we have a massive suite of podcasts out there. So we have Eastman's Journal Podcast, which is hosted by Ike Eastman. We have Eastman's Elevated, hosted by Brian Barney. We have Eastman's Life of a Bow Hunter, co-hosted by Brian Barney and Dan Picard. That's a tag team one. They talk about all things bow hunting. We have my favorite podcast, the Wingmen Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Todd Helms. We have Eastman's Predator Pros, and we have the Western Huntsman Podcast, hosted by Jim Huntsman. You can find all those podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find all of our gear reviews across all of our properties that we do on YouTube. Those are Wingmen gear reviews, Eastman's Hunting TV gear reviews, and I'm trying to remember what I left out, guys. But my point is, there is a plethora of information and content out there on YouTube for you to check out and enjoy. This episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by Leupold Optics. You know, I've been running Leupold Optics for a long time on the big game side of things, and I love the performance and the quality of that brand. But when Leupold brought performance eyewear into the mix a couple of years ago, I thought I'd seen it all, but I was wrong. That performance eyewear from Leupold keeps my eyes protected. It helps me with my target acquisition with a crisp, clear sight picture. And guys, I got to be honest with you, I'm stoked to be partnered with a company like Leupold. So for all your optics needs, give Leupold a look. Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Wingmen Podcast. It's a solo episode, just yours truly, just me and you today. And our seasons are all wrapped up out here. We're kind of in between right now. Duck season's been closed for almost a month. That's kind of crazy. But goose season, dark goose season for us here just closed last weekend, and it's kind of a deep breath and time to take inventory, take stock on how the season went, and I like to take some time and reflect on some things from the season and really look, because when you're in the middle of it and you're grinding away and you're trying to get as much accomplished and have as much fun as you possibly can, it's easy, at least for me, to lose sight of some of the things, the reasons why we do this, why we love to hunt waterfowl, why we love to hunt upland birds. You know, upland seasons are closed as well. The next thing on the docket is conservation season, light goose conservation season. That's already started. There's guys hammering on the white geese already, and good for you guys. We don't really see that up where I live. I have to travel to do that, and that's not on the docket this year, and I'm okay with that. That's a whole other set of grinding that, quite frankly, is something I enjoy, but not as much as I enjoy the daily stuff of ducks and dark geese. But next up for us is turkeys, and it's kind of an all-in thing. I've got a new series this year, part 2 from last year. We started School of Strut last year with Wingmen to kind of entertain and educate you guys, you listeners out there, on turkeys, on turkey hunting, some of the finer points of it. And we're going to do that round 2 this year. I'm going to line up. I'm in the process of lining up some great guests, podcast guests, all about turkey hunting, everything from tactics and gear to hunts, memorable hunts. I know, man, I've had the last couple seasons of turkey hunting for me have been just off the Richter. We've had some really great hunts, both for Wingmen on camera and for and with family. It's been really great. But before we get any further, and I've got a whole list of things I want to talk about, I want to give a huge shout out to our partners. We couldn't do what we do without Weatherby, without Federal Premium, without Cryptech, without Leupold Optics, High Mountain Seasonings, and Roughland Kennels. Guys, they are the power, the force behind what we do here. They allow us to bring you content like this, like our video series. It's on YouTube. They power what goes on with our social media. And I'm super stoked and very grateful and blessed to have the partners that I have. They're all companies and organizations that I firmly and strongly believe in and support. Even if I didn't do this for a living, I'd still be supporting those brands. I have been since before I did this, and I will be in perpetuity. So thank you to those sponsors. Guys, when you get a chance and you need gear, go check them out. I honestly believe that they make some of the best stuff in the space. So with that, without further ado, let's dive right into it. I kind of brainstormed a list of things that I want to talk about. You know, like I said, we're a few days out of the real kind of close of everything with the dark goose season, and we had a great hunt. I was able to track down one last Canada goose feed here locally, and on a really tough year. You know, I heard mixed reports from all over the country. You know, and it seems like every year you got guys that are crying about, you know, you don't have the birds or it's really tough, and then you got other guys that are slaying and they're getting after it. They're covered up in birds. It's like that every year. This year we were on the slow end for sure. We never got big pushes of birds. We still haven't really gotten winter. While some of the country has been plunged into deep sub-zero cold temperatures and had that real wintry, some of those real wintry hardcore hunts, we never did. We never got that here. And honestly, when we don't get extreme cold and deep snow, we don't get birds. They stay to the north. They stay as far north as they possibly can. And it doesn't have anything to do with flooded corn or warm water ponds out here in this part of the country. It just has to do with survival for those birds. They are only going to migrate as far as they have to migrate. And for us, we're on the southern end of that migration corridor. It seems funny to say that southern end here in northwestern Wyoming, but there's a lot of habitat, a lot of winter habitat, not very far to the north of us, up into Montana and even into southern Alberta and southern Saskatchewan, that when we don't get winter, those birds don't come down. And that was kind of the case this year. We had some good birds early, had some great hunts with family, but it's easy to get down in the dumps and really kind of focus on what you don't have. When what we should be focused on are all the things that we do. You know, when you're scrambling for birds, when your scouts aren't paying dividends, when your go-to spots aren't producing the numbers of birds or maybe any birds, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating, and you have a tendency to kind of, well, this stinks, and get kind of that stinking thinking, if you will. As a friend of mine is fond of saying, it's easy to get down in the dumps. I found myself kind of getting that way about December, early January. You know, we were really struggling to build content for you guys, and it was wasn't looking good. But instead of focusing on those things, I found myself really having to dig down and look at what I do have. And I have hunting available to me that a lot of people don't. And I'm very grateful for that. You know, instead of focusing on all the hunts that we didn't get an episode out of, or we only shot a handful of birds, or we only even saw a few birds, I was able to really kind of focus on the time in the blind that I got to share. I got to share with a couple of with a new outfit and a new guide to me, and some clients from other parts of the country that I got to enjoy and spend time with, to, you know, my regular buddies. You guys know Josh Lancaster of Red Flats Retrievers. He and I got to hunt a lot together this year, and Josh is an absolute ray of sunshine. I love that guy. And he has a way of bringing just an upbeat enthusiasm on hunts that otherwise can be tough. And there was lots of times we went out that we didn't kill a lot of birds. We didn't see a lot of birds. And it made the times that we did get them really special. But when I think back, it's focusing on those things that I do have. I'm healthy. I have a beautiful family. I have a job that allows me to get out pretty much whenever I want. Allows me to do a little bit of travel and get to experience some hunting in some different places, and some places that some are well known, some are hardly known. And the one thing they all have in common is they're all cool experiences in and of themselves. I think back to the little moments little sunrise moments, little moments where ducks are trickling into the decoys before shooting light, and that anticipation that builds for the day. You finish up a scout and you found a few birds and you're just jacked for the next day. You're excited. It's that, like, going back to when you first started out in this, and you'd be so excited for the morning hunt, whether or not you scouted, you just excited to get out. We have that. I have that. And focusing on those times, focusing on those moments are really what kind of puts tougher seasons into perspective. This was a season where I probably harvested the fewest ducks that I've harvested in the last 10 years. We just didn't have birds. There was a lot of hunts that we went out, took the cameras, took everything, and it just didn't pan out. We'd kill 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5, 6, and it was great. Those are great. Those are still great days in and of themselves. We still were in the blind. We're still working dogs. We're doing all those things that are the reasons why we do it. It just, a lot of hunts fell short of the expectation, if you will, this year. And if you let it, you can get bogged down in that. Well, it stunk this year. We didn't have the birds. There didn't have any weather, blah, 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 blah. Birds were tough. There was a lot of competition. You name it. It's easy to focus on the negative, but we are blessed that we get to live in a place, not just here where I am, but all around the country, where we get to do what we love to do, and yeah, hunting public land is a challenge. It's really difficult in a lot of places, including here. It seems like leasing is becoming more and more and more a thing. Everywhere, everybody I talk to, stuff's been leased up, stuff's been developed, can't get on places that you used to get on. So really cherishing the things that we have, having a good gun, having a great dog, having good friends to go hunt with, having my kids in the blind with me are the things that I really have to drill into and look at, especially heading into these kind of the doldrums, if you will. We got quite a while before turkey season starts, and it's just kind of a time of year when there's not much going on as a hunter, as a bird hunter. And so what are those things that are going to keep me fueled for next season? Man, it's all the little things when I look back on them. I got to share time in the blind with my dad this year more than I have in the last probably 10 years. I can't remember if I mentioned it in a previous podcast or not, but my mom passed away in August, at the end of August. And it was a blessing. She's in heaven with Jesus, and knowing that is a huge comfort. She had a long battle with cancer, and it was time. And that set up the fall for my dad to chase some things that, he's been with my mom they've been married for over 50 years. And he had a lot of time when he was younger, raising a family and working, that he sacrificed a lot for my brother and I and for my mom. And now it sounds weird to say this, but in a way, especially after a 7-year battle with cancer where he was her primary caretaker, he put a lot of his things he wanted to do on the back burner because of that. Again, sacrificing for the people that you love. And I admire him for that. But I wanted to make sure that this fall
this hunting season, he got to do some things that he's been wanting to do. And so I focused a lot of time and effort on doing stuff with him. And we don't live close together. He lives in northeastern Iowa, and we live out here in northwestern Wyoming. That's a long, long ways. It's right around 1,000 miles, give or take. And so when he comes out, I like to arrange it so he can stay for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. Do stuff with the grandkids, and he and I can do things together. And I got to have some hunts with him this year that they were really awesome. They were magical. The first one of which a good friend of mine has a family farm in North Dakota, and we went and chased pheasants in November around Thanksgiving. And I didn't film it. I did some pictures and some social media stuff, but that's not what that trip was about. For me, that trip was about just spending time with my dad and my good friend and his family. And we had an awesome time. We shot quite a few birds. There was lots of pheasants. Hondo really came into his own as a pheasant dog this year. And, there's a lot of joking back and forth on the internet between, pointing dog guys and flushing dog guys about hunting upland birds, but that is what it is. You use what you have. You use the tools at your disposal. I have Labradors. I don't have pointing dogs. I'd like to, but I don't. And honestly, we shot a pile of birds over one single Labrador retriever who did a phenomenal job. And that hunt stands out. My dad will call up and we still reminisce over those couple days that we had in North Dakota. That's something that I have. Another thing, we hunted ducks probably 3 or 4 times together while he was here. And while none of those hunts were smashes or bangers or, we didn't mop up birds, we had great time together in the blind. We got to share stories and we got to build memories together, and we shot some ducks. We ate ducks, and it was awesome. He got to be in the blind with his grandkids a couple of times, and that's huge. That's huge for me. That means those things mean more to me than building piles. I've built piles. How long have I been doing this? 30 some years, 30 some years now that I've been hunting ducks and geese and chasing upland birds. We got to build more memories, and that was huge. It was a ton of fun. I got to take him on his first outfitted waterfowl experience. We went up with Milk River Outfitters up in Montana, and we got to chase some honkers up there. Shot a couple ducks too. Had one pretty solid good day, and had one day where it was really slow. But had the drive time to enjoy. Had time in the lodge to enjoy. Had time in the blind to enjoy. He got to witness Hondo make a ridiculous hero retrieve on a goose that was honestly more than you should even ask of any dog to do. And he did it flawlessly. And he was there. Dad was there for that. Those types of things are really kind of tip the scales when you start looking at the big picture. They tip the scales in favor of what you do have versus what you didn't have or what you don't have. And it's, the older I get and the longer I do this, I still love smashes, man. I still love going and really getting them. But it's the things like that, spending time with my loved ones in blind, spending time with friends, watching a dog do what he loves to do, watching a bird break and cup and just come right into the decoys. You completely fool him. Watching those sunrises and sunsets and traveling across the country to go and do different hunts and different things. Those are the things to me that really, the longer I do this, those are the things that really add up. Those are the things that really matter. And I think we get lost sometimes in the social media world of piles and smiles, and I'm not complaining about that. I like that side of it too. I enjoy all of it. Everything that I get to do is a blessing. and not anything that I ever envisioned for myself. I never set out to be in the industry, if you will. It's not something I ever really envisioned for myself. And yet this was God's plan for my life, and here I am. And so it's really important to me to take a step back when seasons end, really take stock of how things went, more than just the numbers. How are your hunts? How was your time in the blind? How was your time with people that you care about? Just focus on the things that you got to do instead of the things that maybe didn't go your way. The blessings that fell right in your lap. Because we had them. We had them. As slow of a season as this was, we had blessing upon blessing upon blessing. Even the final goose hunt that we did, we didn't kill a 3-man limit like we wanted to, but we ended up with 12 birds in really tough conditions. Found a feed, got permission, built a new relationship with a landowner that I didn't know, and was able to go out with a couple of good friends. We got some decent video out of it, but more importantly, we had a couple of great dogs, got them out. We killed a handful of birds, and it was a great time. It was a great way to end the season. And it's those types of things that's what really matters. It really matters. You know, I took my kids out a lot this year. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of birds, so I'd never felt the pressure like I have to film this. This is going to be incredible. This has to be filmed. I never really felt like that this year. I just tried to enjoy the process and got my kids and my wife in the blind as much as I possibly could. And I really wanted both of my daughters to get their first ducks. And it just didn't work out for my oldest. She got to shoot quite a bit, little single shot 410, shooting federal premium. Actually, it was blue box. I had her shooting, both the girls, I had them shooting federal speed shock 3-inch 6s out of a 410. And they were shooting at birds that had decoyed that were sitting on the water in the decoys. We haven't worked, my kids are still pretty little, and we haven't worked a lot on shooting flying yet. And so let's just get those first birds. Let's get them a couple birds under their belt, and then we'll start working on shooting birds out of the air. And my oldest tried and had some close calls, man. She had where the bird would jump and she'd shoot right where it was, or teaching them, fundamentals of gun handling, safe gun handling, and how to shoot. We had a little saying that I use all the time. They get ready to shoot, and I'd be right in their ear, and I'd say, bird, bead, bang. Bird, bead, bang. Bird, bead, bang. Because what was happening is they'd go to shoot, and they'd pick their head off the stock and pull the trigger, and they'd miss the bird every single time. Trying to keep your sight picture. And while my oldest didn't ever end up harvesting a bird, there was one weekend where I had a free day, and I said, come on, we're going to the blind. And I took my son and my middle daughter, and my middle daughter shot not only her first duck, but her second duck on that morning. We ended up shooting 5. She shot 2, I shot 3, and we got out of there. There was quite a few birds around that morning, and I kind of wanted to save it, so we didn't put any pressure on those birds. We got in and out pretty good. We're able to manage the spot well, but I really wanted to focus and be present in that moment for her. And I can close my eyes and think about that sight picture. We get the gun up, she gets her sight picture, and I said, bird, bead, bang. And she shoots and just smokes this Drake mallard. Just perfect. And she's like, I got him! She was all excited. And she gets excited, but she doesn't get as animated as some other kids might have. But she was really stoked. She was pumped up, and so was I. And then a few minutes later, another bird came in low, slipped in, landed right in the decoys, and she got him too. And so she got her first and her second, and they were both drakes. Just a cool experience. We took them home, cleaned them up, and we ate them. And having the ability to go out and do those things is priceless. You know, it's such a blessing to live in the United States of America where we can do those things. And I can pass down that grand tradition of hunting that was passed down to me from my parents, my dad and my grandpas and my uncles, my grandfather and my uncles. It's just cool. And so when I look back, those are the things that, yeah, we didn't have lots of birds, but I had some shining moments, and it was incredible. It was a really great season because of those things. And so when I look back and like total number of birds wasn't great, but total number of experiences, like huge shining moments, was off the charts. It was phenomenal. I have a ton to be thankful for. You know, as I was brainstorming about things to talk about with this too, one of the things that really kind of sunk in this year is chasing perfection. And I think all of us are guilty of that. You know, and while we should strive for perfection, we also have to be honest and realize that none of us are perfect. And everything from our decoy placement's never going to be perfect. Our shooting is never going to be perfect. We're never always going to say the right thing in the right moment. You know, there's going to be times when we look back at the end of a hunt or an interaction with somebody and think, man, I botched that. I could have done so much better there. And giving ourselves some grace when it comes to those things. You know, it spills over into so many aspects of life, obviously. But if we look, you know, hunting is really a microcosm of our daily lives. How things go versus how we expected them to go or wanted them to go. How we handle those situations when we're in them. When things are great and you're winning and you're killing it versus things aren't going the way you wanted them to. You know, there's a lot there. You know, I have a friend who's got an expression that he likes to use. When you squeeze a man, you see what's inside of him. What's inside of him comes out. When you squeeze a man, what's inside of him comes out. And I just hope that in those moments where I'm being squeezed, what comes out is the right thing, the right stuff. And I can't say that it's always the case, but giving yourself some grace and your shoot. You know, I had the first day we were in North Dakota, man, with my dad, I did not shoot well. I had a pile of opportunities, mainly because Hondo hunts for me more than he hunts for anybody else. And I had the only dog he was the only dog we had. And so I got a lot of opportunities at birds and had some weird things happen. I was struggling to get the safety off on my gun cleanly. My gun mount wasn't as dialed, as smooth as I wanted it to be. Cost me some birds. I missed a few birds. I lost 2 birds that I hit poorly. And one went down a badger hole, and the other one, believe it or not, went down a telephone pole hole. They'd pulled all the old telephone poles out of this pasture and didn't put poles back in the same spot, so there were open holes, and I dropped a bird unknowingly right by one, and he hit the ground. I thought I smoked him. He hit the ground, literally bounced, and I'd made the mistake of taking my eyes off the bird. I'd marked him down, but I looked down to reload my gun, and Hondo had flushed him right off his nose, and he was tracking the bird as I shot it, and he was right on it, and I thought, dog's got it, no problem. And I don't know what happened, but by the time I got the gun loaded and looked up, Hondo was hunting around in a place where the bird fell, and there's no bird, and he's not finding it, and he hunted hard for probably 30 minutes. He hunted about as hard as a dog could hunt, and he kept going back to this one spot and was sniffing around really intently and kind of digging at it a little bit. And I thought, what in the world? And I walked over, and there's a hole in the ground there where one of those telephone poles had been, and he kept sticking his head in that hole and snuffling. And as I looked a little closer, I could see feathers, kind of like down the shaft of the hole. I don't know how deep the hole was, 6-8 feet. However deep they bury those things, but I was not getting that bird back, and it was pretty obvious that the bird was in that hole. And then the next day had the same thing happen, but it was a badger hole where a bird dove down a badger hole. And it was frustrating. I don't lose a lot of birds. I train my dogs really, really hard all year so we don't lose birds, whether it's waterfowl or upland. And to lose 2 roosters on one hunt, literally not even 24 hours apart, was really frustrating to me, knowing that, my shooting wasn't clean, that I crippled those birds and that when they went down alive, which that's going to happen with birds. I get that. You don't have a ton of control over that. But that one day, man, I struggled. And that night, I was hard on myself. I was mad at myself for not shooting very well, not being calm, cool, and collected, and didn't hunt up to my own standards. And I wasn't mad at anybody but myself, but I got done on the drive home with Dad the next day, and I got thinking about it, and we kind of laughed about it a little bit. And he had said, "Man, I've never seen you struggle that much since you were a kid." And I thought, yeah, and then we just kind of laughed about it. And we kind of talked through the situation and what was going on, and my dad's dealing with the same stuff. He's not a spring chicken, and his gun mount's slower, his reflexes are slower, his footwork isn't smooth, but he does the best he can. And there was the second day in particular, we had him on the edge, and man, he was stroking them. He had birds going out that side, and I put him there for a reason because I figured birds would do that, and they did. And he was picking them up and laying them down. He had his 3-bird limit really fast, and he was kind of strutting a little bit, which I guess he earned that, and that's good. But giving yourself some grace, giving your dog some grace. Hondo's a great dog. I won't say he's the best lab I've ever owned, but man, he's right there with the best. He's phenomenal. He has an incredible personality. He works really hard. He's a thoroughbred of a dog, and because of that, he has a tendency to break. We work on it and we work on it and we work on it and we work on it. And one of the things I found with him, that if I'm not shooting, he's solid. He's rock solid. When we hunted with Milk River Outfitters, the first day we were hunting out of a half pit dug into the riverbank. And so guns were on the same level as the dog would be. And so I told everybody, look, I'm not going to shoot the first few goes because I'm going to handle the dog. But when I start shooting, he will break. And please be careful of my dog. Please look before you shoot. The situation we were hunting over was a little side channel. The water was only about 8-10 inches deep. There's no way a goose was going to get away from Hondo in those conditions. So there was no need to mop up birds on the water. And he was going to catch them. And he did. He had no problems. And everybody was great. But yeah, the minute I started shooting, Hondo started breaking. And it's that way kind of across the board with him. If I shoot, he breaks. And I've tried. I know there's guys listening to this going, "Oh, you're not doing this right, and you're not doing this right." And you can be critical all you want. That's fine. But I am going to defend myself a little bit and say I've worked really hard to break him of that, to the point where I have somebody handling him. My friend Josh will handle him while I shoot, and it doesn't matter. He still breaks. He still wants to go, and it just kind of is what it is at this point. He does great across the board. He's an awesome dog. That's the one flaw that he has, and you can look at it as a flaw. I'm working on making peace with it. We hunt mainly river sets, and so having a dog that breaks in a river setting isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as everybody hunting knows not to shoot when the dog's out. Honestly, it saves, if you cripple a bird, if the dog's on it really quickly. Hondo didn't lose a single duck this year that I sent him on. No, I take that back. There was one. We sailed a hen mallard. We doubled out the pair, killed the drake cleanly, and the hen sailed and was too far away to finish, and I watched her crawl out on the riverbank. And we had more birds working, so it was about 35 or 40 minutes before I could send the dog. And when we got a break in the flight, I sent him, And he found exactly where she went up the bank, disappeared into the brush, and he was gone for I don't know how many minutes. Came back with a very confused look on his face. I have no idea where that bird was. And I let him work over there for probably about 30 minutes. And 2 separate occasions, actually, and we never did find that bird.
Hey guys, huge shout out to our newest Wingmen partner, Roughland Kennels out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. You can see my kit right here, my setup. I've got the Roughland Intermediate Kennels with the front open doors. I have a handful of bowls and these handy dandy scoops. And I have kennel covers because it gets cold out here and I like my dogs to be warm in transport. Guys, I would encourage you to go to roughlandkennels.com and check out the full lineup of everything they have. They have a ton of different colors of kennels. They have an amazing array of accessories, so you got everything you need when you head out in the field, when you're training on a hunt, whatever it may be, Roughland's got you covered. Check out roughland.com and you can build a kit just like I did.
There was another drake we lost that went down a beaver hole in the bank, and Hondo was submerging himself into the hole, and he did it a couple of times, and he was digging like crazy. And it dawned on me what he was doing, and there was a bunch of fresh beaver activity in that spot, and I called him off because I was afraid he was going to get a stick through his collar while he was submerged and not be able to resurface, and I wouldn't have been able to get over there to him before he drowned. And so I called him off that bird. Whether or not he could have gotten it, I don't know. But other than that, birds knocked down in the main flow of the river. He never missed one, and there were several that were crippled, that were diving. One of the things that he's gotten really proficient at is figuring out birds that are diving on him. I watched him catch probably a half a dozen ducks this year that were diving on him. And in the river, when a bird dives, it almost always pops up further downriver. And he's figured out where to look. When the bird goes under, he swims in a circle, kind of treads water, and he knows where to look, that it's going to start probably popping up most of the time downstream of him. And he never lost a diving bird this year. A couple of times he went completely under the water and came up with the bird in his mouth. That's a pretty rare trait. So for the things that he's not perfect at, like breaking, there's other things that he is incredible about. And not the least of which being around home. He's such a pleasant dog to have in the home. He loves my kids. He puts up with his son Rooster, who's coming along. And, just kind of giving some grace and being realistic about some things is pretty important. You're not perfect, and neither is your dog. Neither is anybody else you're hunting with. So keep those things in mind. I know I have to. Another thing that popped up this year is protecting what you have while sharing where you can. We lease a little bit of ground here. I wouldn't say we lease a lot, but the reality of the game just about anywhere anymore is you have to lease. If you want consistent hunting, you're probably going to have to lease some things. And I got a couple pieces of ground that we've been leasing for a while that I'm very blessed to have. And I try to share those as often as I can while still protecting them and managing them. The places out here, a lot of the places out here in the West in particular get an inordinate amount of pressure simply because our waterfowl habitats are very small. They're not giant, huge marshes that birds can spread out all over in, or giant river flyways and corridors. They're usually long and narrow. And so you can put a lot of pressure on birds really easily without trying to. And so I really try to manage the hunting pressure on my leases where I don't hunt it. I try not to hunt it more than once a week. Sometimes we have to, but I try not to, simply because I like those birds to have a safe place to be. And it helps out the other hunting too, because if they have a safe place to be, they're more willing to fly out and feed in fields where other guys can get at them and maybe move around a little bit where other folks can get some shooting too. But I also try to share as much as I can. And I had a couple phone calls this year like I always do. And one, I just had to flat say no. It was pretty evident that the folks calling wanted to hunt wanted to hunt in a way that I really wasn't comfortable in for a couple of reasons. It's pretty evident that they wanted to pass shoot and jump shoot. And while I don't see there's anything necessarily wrong with either one of those, it doesn't do you any favors when you're trying to manage a place to keep birds in an area and have them be safe. And protecting what the landowners have. Buildings get shot, tractors get shot. Bad things happen a lot of times when you don't have control over a situation, or when you're trying to jump shoot or pass shoot with folks that aren't super familiar with the layout of things. And so I had to say no in that scenario. I had another one where I had a young man that wanted to work his dog a little bit, and I was trying to get an episode filmed because we had no content filmed at that time, and I had to tell him no. But then later in the season, I told him to check back in with me, and I'd try to get him on and get him some birds. And I try to do that as much as I can. There's been a lot of times in the past where somebody will call and they'll want to hunt, and I'll ask him, I'll ask him to hunt my blind, and I'll give him directions down to the blind and say, all the decoys are in there. Just set them up. Please just pick them up, put them away like how you found them, and pick up any trash that you may, accumulate down there. And 99% of the time it works out. And I like being able to share where I can. It's a fine line between, like I said, managing what you have and taking care of the resource, and sharing where and when you can. Sharing might look as simple as taking somebody new with you, somebody that wants to try it or loves doing it but might not have a great spot, or any place for that matter. I try to take folks when I can, as much as I can. Take kids. Take the guy that only gets a few days off here and there. If you can get him out, take him with you. And all those things matter. They matter a lot, and they matter more and more to me as the older I get and the longer I do this. So just something to think about, on your spots. Yeah, I get it, man. You got to manage and protect what you have, but we got to share what we can as well. Because if we're not growing this, if we're not passing these traditions down like they were passed down to us, then we're missing the boat for sure. 100%. Another thing, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but one of the things that I really had to focus on this year, or I wanted to remind myself of and not get lost in, was just enjoying the process. Enjoying the scouting, enjoying hauling decoys into a blind and brushing blinds in, and enjoying the travel to and from places, and enjoying just the whole process, enjoying every bit of it, enjoying the dog training and the shooting and the gear prep. Our life is busy. I've got kids that are at the age where we're starting to run around chasing them at different athletic events and different music things. And it's easy to get wrapped up in those things and go, man, let's just go hunt. And the process, the enjoyment of the process gets lost. I love gear. I'm not a great gear tinkerer. I don't reload anymore. I don't have time. I don't even really tie my own flies anymore. I just don't have the time for it. Or I choose not to make the time for it because there's other things that are more important at this point. But just the process of simple things like cleaning guns, making sure your decoys are rigged and squared away ahead of time, scouting, going for a little walk on your lunch break and looking for birds, or going for a ride on your lunch break and looking for birds, or, dog training in the backyard at lunchtime. You're not running huge drills, but just working with your dogs. And then the process of the hunt itself, sitting in the blind on slow days. And we had some days this year where we spent a lot of hours in a blind and for not a lot of results. And those are easy days to get frustrated with, but if you're enjoying the process and really engaged in the moment, you'll you'll enjoy those sips of coffee. You'll enjoy that lip pillow, or maybe a good cigar, or maybe somebody else is smoking a cigar. Or you'll enjoy the sunrise. You'll enjoy watching deer cross the river. You'll enjoy the kingfisher perched on in the tree above the blind. You'll marvel at a swan that seems like he's lost because he hangs out where there's no other swans for an entire season, and you get to see him periodically. It's those little things, man. On these slower seasons like this, really enjoying the process is important. I mean, we should be enjoying it all the time, but when seasons are great and you're smashing ducks all the time, or ducks and geese all the time, and you're grinding and you're in it, that process kind of takes a back seat. Where on some of these slower seasons like this, you really have time to chill and look at things carefully and really dig in and enjoy the process. Enjoy every little moment, all the little details. And I really found myself doing more of that this year, because I had the time. I had downtime in the blind to just sit and think about, man, I'm so blessed to be out here. I'm not digging ditches, or I'm not framing houses, or I'm not sitting behind my desk answering emails or editing a magazine. I'm hunting. I'm out here doing this. And that's the process, and being thankful for those things. It goes back to the first point I made about focusing on what we have instead of what we don't. And this season kind of kicked that into high gear for me. And it was just because we struggled with birds. So you had to find other things, because it's easy to get, you run into other guys that are hunting, or you run into guys at the gas station in the morning and everybody's complaining about no birds. Oh, it's been tough. And yeah, it's okay to do that. But if you become that person that's just constantly complaining about getting to do this stuff, or every time I run into you, you're complaining, or every time you run into me, I'm complaining, that's not who I want to be. And that's not who none of us want to be, or we should be. So yeah, enjoying the process, man. It's the little details are where the magic happens. Honestly, it's first birds. It's a dog that breaks every now and then, but is hell on ducks. It's all those little things. They just add up. They really add up. Another saying that I'm fond of thinking about is comparison is the thief of joy. And in today's world of constant entertainment right at your fingertips with social media, man, it's easy to compare your hunts or what you're doing with what other people are doing. And if you let it, you'll go down a dark, dark, dark rabbit hole with that. When you're comparing what you're doing with what somebody else is doing in another part of the country, or maybe even in your own part of the country, it'll steal your joy if you let it. You got to remember, we all have to remember that social media is a snapshot. It's a glimpse into a moment in time. And we're everybody that puts stuff on social media is sharing the best of their life, the best of those moments. That doesn't show you the flat tires, and it doesn't show you the dog that ran away, or the dog you had to put down a year ago. It doesn't show you the real life. It just shows you the highlights, man. And it's entertaining and it's fun. I enjoy being on social media. I think can be a great tool, but holy smokes, don't let it consume you. And I'm preaching to myself as much as I am talking to you here, because I get wrapped up in it too. I get focused on, man, those guys in Texas are doing this, and I wish I was doing that, and I'm stuck here, and Comparison is the thief of joy, because I will guarantee you that some of those guys are looking at what you do or what I do, and they're thinking the same thing. And enjoy the moment, man. Enjoy what we've got. Enjoy the harvest. I don't like that word necessarily, but it's the industry standard, I guess, anymore. So I think you know what I mean when I say that. We don't harvest waterfowl. We don't harvest birds or deer or elk. We hunt them. We take them. We kill them. We eat them. And enjoying that part of it is important. And what I mean by that is enjoy eating your birds. You know, we see it every year where somebody finds a ditch full of geese or a dumpster full of geese, or, you know, it happens a lot with snow geese, unfortunately. Man, figure out ways to eat them. Figure out ways that you like eating your birds. I stumbled onto something this year. I had some geese still in the freezer from last season, and I'd packaged them up pretty good. They were in good shape, and added them to the geese I shot this year. And I thought, man, what am I going to do with all of this? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try something different. I thought them all out, and I thought I'm either going to make snack sticks out of these and jerky out of these with the High Mountain seasoning kits, or I got to grind them anyway. And so I cleaned them up really, really good, and I did a coarse grind. First pass through my grinder, I coarse ground some goose breasts. I coarse ground all of it because it had to get ground. But then I thought, you know what? My family and I like to process game together, so that's what we were doing. I said, you know what, guys? Let's do a fine grind, a second grind, and do a fine grind, like a hamburger type grind, on a pound of this. And let's just fry it up loose, season it with taco seasoning, and see how it tastes. And holy smokes, did I stumble onto something there, guys. I always struggle to figure out exactly what I'm going to do with all these Canada geese, because Canada geese in particular multiply in your freezer big time. Every time you shoot 3, 4, 5 of them, if you don't eat them right away or use them right away, they get put in the freezer, and pretty soon you got 50 pounds, 75 pounds, 100 pounds, and you have to figure out a way to something to do with them. And you try to stay on top of all that, and you're making food with them. You're consuming them as fast as you can. Well, this hamburger thing, incredible. I just put some taco seasoning on this goose meat and mixed it all in, and just fried it loose like I'd be frying taco meat in the frying pan with some avocado oil. And then we just tried it with like tortilla chips just to see how it would be. And everybody took a couple bites, and they were like, Dad, that's really good. It's just ground meat. I said, well, we're doing all of it then. So I did a second fine grind on the whole batch, and I don't know what total poundage that I ended up with, but last night I came home and my wife was making spaghetti, and we're all just diving in. Everybody's hungry. Kids have got stuff to go to here and there, and we're eating dinner. We try to sit down and eat dinner together every night. And we get about halfway through the meal, and everybody's just chowing this spaghetti. It's really, really good. And my wife grows a big garden every year and makes her own spaghetti sauce out of the tomatoes from the garden and different herbs and things that she grows. And I said, she's like, how's the spaghetti? And I said, all of us were like, yeah, it's really, really good. She said, well, I used the goose that we ground up. And everybody kind of looked at her and was like, Mom, that's really good. And apparently she's been using it in tacos and in chili and none of us, we're just eating it. Find a way that you're going to eat your birds. You know, it's something as simple as ground meat. Grind it all up and eat it in tacos, spaghetti, lasagna, chili, whatever. It's red meat at the end of the day. And I was reminded of that when we ground up that goose and started using it. It's so versatile. And if you take care of it and treat it like meat, it's meat. And it tastes like meat, and it's good. There's ways to be creative with it. You know, ducks don't last very long in my house. Ducks get pretty much consumed as they get shot, whether it's duck poppers or grill them up on the grill and just eat them like a steak. My kids love that. We'll eat 5-6 ducks in one sitting at our house between the 5 of us, no problem. It does not last long. And so ducks go pretty quick, but it always seems like we have a bunch of geese, and I stumbled onto it, man, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy that I've figured out a way that I feed it to my family, and we enjoy it, and it gets used the way it's intended to be used and the way it should be used. And I don't get me wrong, I love making specialty stuff. I love making snack sticks and summer sausage and jerky out of goose. And the High Mountain kits make that really, really easy to do, and they're awesome. But it's nice to just throw some in a pot of chili or make spaghetti with it, or tacos or nachos or whatever, and use it up. There's nothing worse than having a good year and killing a bunch of birds, and then they sit in your freezer and you end up, not consuming them as quickly as you should. And that's why we do it. I mean, we love doing this because we love to hunt. We love these birds, and we owe it to them to find ways to eat them and consume them that are enjoyable. And so I would encourage you to do that. Do some research. There's tons and tons of ideas on the internet. High Mountain Seasonings is an amazing resource. They always have a million ideas for everything from goose and duck bacon to snack sticks. I mean, you name it, they've got it. They've got you covered. And not just them. I mean, there's lots of stuff on social media. There's lots of stuff on YouTube. You can find ways to eat your birds that will probably, blow your mind. And so I would encourage you in this off season to take some time, figure out what am I going to do with this stuff, and experiment with it. Some stuff you might really like, some stuff might not be all that great, but experiment with it and learn how and figure out ways to eat your birds. I just hear way too many stories of birds getting wasted, thrown in the trash, and that's a travesty, man. Seems like it happens with geese more than anything else. I don't get that. I don't understand that. So I would encourage you to do that. It's something I tasked myself with these last couple of years, and it's really paid dividends. So final thing that I want to talk about is this is the time of year to reflect. If you're in an area like me where you're not going to probably shoot a lot of snow geese, or maybe not any snow geese, and turkey seasons are 2 months away, this is the time of year to reflect. It's the time of year to break your guns down, clean your guns, go through your gear. What clothing do you need to replace? Maybe you need to get your waders serviced. Maybe you got to go through decoys and fix patch lines or replace cords, or maybe, I don't know, take stock, take inventory, because by next fall, you'll have forgotten all the stuff that you need to do, and then you'll be starting right back frustrated with stuff you didn't take care of. This is the time of year to dive in, fix what needs to be fixed, take stock, take inventory. And while you're doing that, it's part of that process I was talking about. Enjoy it. Enjoy the process. Reflect on the season. Reflect on the things that went well. Reflect on the things that didn't go well and make a plan how to make them better next year. I'm still going to work on Hondo's braking all year. We're going to keep drilling into that and try to get that figured out. I'm going to work on my shooting. Overall, I thought I shot pretty well this year, but I had a couple days where, I just didn't shoot very well. And it was more of a mindset thing. My mind was other places. It seems to always be the way it is. Shooting a shotgun is like 90% mental and 10% fundamentals. But this is the time of year to take stock. Remember all the good stuff. Think about the stuff that didn't go the way you wanted it to, and make a plan to fix it. I know that's what I'm doing. I'm working on that. I'm going to get my kids out. We're going to shoot a lot more this year. That was one of the things that both with my whole family, myself included, we all decided kind of at New Year's, we need to spend more time shooting next year and purposely shooting. That's it, guys. This episode was, I don't feel like I had anything to just mind-blowing, but I wanted to talk about some things that I've been thinking about as seasons are winding down and ending, and we're headed into turkey season. I'm super excited for what comes next. I love hunting turkeys. I'm excited to get my kids out after them. I got a couple of turkey trips planned that I'm really excited to go capture some awesome content. We're getting ready to release last year's turkey hunt we did up in Montana. You guys are going to love it. We were able to take 4 great big mature Merriam's gobblers on camera in the decoys, Really, really great turkey footage. Probably some of the best turkey footage I've ever filmed. And yeah, I might be a little biased here, but I think it's some of the best turkey footage I've seen anywhere. I played with some camera angles, in particular with the GoPro last year in the decoys, and I got some really awesome turkey footage that's up close and personal, and captured some turkey behavior on film last year that I'd never paid attention to it as closely, but some dominant gobbler behavior that was really interesting to see once we went back and looked at the footage. So I'm stoked to show you that. Really excited to get back up there and chase birds again with JD Stensland at Circle S Outfitters. I'm also headed to Milk River Outfitters, back up there for turkeys this year. Really excited to try those guys out. I would encourage you, if you're looking for a turkey hunt out west, give JD Stensland at Circle S a shout. He's got birds. Give Milk River Outfitters a shout. They've got birds. And these are great Miriam's turkey hunts guys they put you up, they take care of you, they feed you. There's tons of birds. It's an awesome time in a beautiful place. So I'm excited to do that again this year. I'm excited to take my kids out and my wife out and do some DIY stuff. Both of my girls have goals to shoot gobblers this year. My oldest shot the first turkey she ever killed was 2 years ago, and it was a gobbler that had beard rot. And he was a big mature bird, but he had a little stump of a beard. That's all he had. And my middle daughter, my youngest daughter, I have 2 girls and a boy, and in the middle is my youngest daughter. She's killed 2 turkeys, but both of them have been jakes. Last year, my 10-year-old shot a jake. They doubled. My 2 daughters doubled on a pair of jakes that came into the decoys. It was a super cool experience. But they're just adamant that they're shooting gobblers this year, Dad. And so I'm excited to give that a whirl. Hopefully we can accomplish that. And I've got, on the turkey vein, guys, like I said earlier, we're going to start part 2, School of Strut 2.0. If you have suggestions or folks you want to see on the podcast, leave it in the comments so we know who you want us to track down. But we're going to talk everything from locations and turkey tactics and gear to just turkey hunting in general, turkey hunting stories. So School of Strut's going to kick off in March. We're going to start to get those episodes rolling and get that turkey content out to you and in your lap so you can start enjoying some of that. Guys, I would highly encourage you to check out all of the Wingmen products, everything from Facebook and Instagram to, of course, our YouTube channel. But if you have streaming services, go download the Field and Stream app, or I think it was the new app will be Field and Stream TV, and it'll be streaming on your streaming devices, on your TV. Every episode of Wingmen is available on that streaming service. Outdoor America was the platform. I think Outdoor America is still running, but Field and Stream TV is going to be taking the place of Outdoor America. If I have my facts straight. So every episode of Wingmen, the Wingmen hunting season, I think there's 8 seasons now. Holy smokes, I can't believe we've been doing that for 8 seasons already. But every episode we've done is up and streaming. You can check those out there. You can get them online. And of course, the full catalog of Eastman's podcast or Wingmen podcasts, as well as the Eastman's suite of podcasts. Guys, we've got Eastman's Hunting Journal podcast edition that Ike Eastman hosts. We've got Eastman's Elevated, which is a bow hunting podcast, big game podcast that Brian Barney hosts. We have Eastman's Life of a Bow Hunter that Brian Barney and Dan Picard host. That's a big game bow hunting podcast. We have Eastman's Predator Pros, which is hosted by Corey Groff. That's everything predator hunting. Some awesome content there. And we have Jim Huntsman, who hosts the Western Huntsman. So lots of great content in the whole Eastman suite that we have. I would encourage you to check it all out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Wingmen Podcast. And again, a huge shout out to all of our partners. Thank you to Weatherby. Thank you to Federal Premium, Cryptek, Leupold, High Mountain Seasonings, and Ruffland Kennels. Until next time, guys, we'll see you in the field.